Right, this is part 2 of the bouncing ball going down some stairs. In part 1 we animated the paddle swinging back and forwards, which is going to hit the ball and send it down the stairs. This is going to be the longest part of the tutorial because the ball requires quite a lot of animation and quite a lot of work. But plenty of experience, plenty of learning. Right, so the ball is reacting to the paddle. And we're going to break this down into 2 stages. We're going to animate the translates of the ball first, and then we're going to animate the rotates. And we're going to begin, as always, by keying the things that we need. So I'm going to figure that out first just by clicking on this and moving it around. So I know that the ball is going to go flying over here like this, and I can see in the channel box that it's the translate X, the channel box being the top right. I can see that it's the translate X that is doing all the work. So that is the channel that I'm going to key first. Translate X, right click, key selected. Graph editor, Translate X has appeared, and the first keyframe is there. So, 1, 2. Nothing happens because that thing hasn't hit it yet. So let's just get to the point in the frame where it does. Okay, there it is. So it's here, bang. Frame 23 is when the contact happens. So that means that on frame 22 I need to put a frame where nothing has happened. So again, I'm going to come up here, right click and key selected. Bang, that's where it happens. So smack. I'm going to move the ball as much as it should move. At this point here, lots of things could happen. You could do a little bit of distortion, a bit of squashy stretchiness, but for the time being I'm just going to go for an outright movement to keep it simple. So bang. I'm going to say that I'll move it to about there. So it's gone knock and whack, so it's flown over there. That's way too much. I'm going to bring that back. 1, 2. Keep moving. 1, 2. Keep moving. 1, 2. Keep moving. I'm going to swap my views so that I can see things a bit more clearly. I'm going to go for an orthographic front view. I'm going to hold down the space bar. I'm going to hold down the left click button on Maya, and I'm going to choose to go for a front view. There we go. And it just gives me a grid to look at, and it also keeps everything flat. Alright, so let's just catch up on where I was. So hit it there, it flew to there, and then to there, and then to there, and then to there. And I guess it's probably going to go to there now. Now it's going at quite some speed. I need to decide by looking at these graph editor curves how long it's going to take this to slow down. So you can see that first jump here. That's where the ball was, that's where the impact happens. That's the first movement. That there's the second, and it's immediately started slowing down. I'm going to nudge that up a bit. It started to slow down a bit more there, and it's going to slow down even more there. And that means that this one's going to need to slow down even more as well. How does that look on screen? Right, so I think that going at this speed, that ball is not even going to touch the steps. I think that ball is probably going to do something like this. So I'm going to have to slow it down. And to do that, I'm going to click on all of these. I'm going to press the R key. I'm going to hold Shift, middle click and drag, and scale these down a bit like that so it's not going so fast. Let me play that back. There we go. That's much more like it. That will actually bounce down the steps instead of flying over them. So we now need to continue stepping our way to the end. Right, I'm going to show you a trick now, a way of getting your slow in, slow out built into your steps without having to go through these and carefully step things out. Because as you can see, I can go in here now and slow this down by hand, but I'm not really, I haven't got time to do that. And there's no need to either. There's a quick way of doing things that just makes life a lot easier. I'm going to put that last frame in there. The reason that I did just step through that was so that I could roughly figure out how much time it should take for that ball to get to the end. And I think that is about right as far as how much time it takes for it to get to the end. As you can see by the graph editor curve, the spacing is very uneven. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these and delete them. And then I'm going to select this and I'm going to hit the linear curve up here so that it connects directly to that. I'm going to pull the handle by left clicking and dragging it, and I'm going to do that. Let's have a look now. There we go. So we've got a nice result there. So you can see the slow in here. It's looking pretty good. It starts here, we move forward, and you see how we used the stepped workflow to figure out the timing, and then we jumped into splines and we splined it at the end. But yeah, that's beautiful, great. And I'm going to continue stepping from that point onwards now. Do you know what I need to do? It needs to literally get to the very end, so I'm going to move this graph editor curve slightly so that the ball actually gets to the edge of the step. So I'm going to press W, hold down Shift, middle click. I'm going to drag this up like this, and I'm watching the ball, and I want it to get to about there because it's about there where it would start to tumble off the edge. So now I've got the perfect speed. It's going to stop there and roll off the edge. Again, we're not going to use any rotations yet, we're going to do that at the end, but this ball is about to start dropping on the y-axis. So up here, I'm going to right click on Translate Y, and I'm going to click Key Selected. And now as you see in the graph editor, Translate Y has just joined the fray. So I've got Translate X here all the way from 0 to 50, and Translate Y is now joining us on frame 51. Okay, so the ball is at the edge, and we're just going to continue as we were before. So 1, 2. See this now is going to fall off the edge like that. You see here we actually already have a bit of a dodgy curve going on because it's splining in the middle of them. Now I can't easily change that because, as you'll see, if I change that to step now, that's all well and good until I want to then auto spline it, and you'll see it'll mess up this curve. So I am going to just leave that one as it is without any step between frame 51 and frame 52. I'm just going to allow it to be a bit of a messed up curve, and I'll fix it later. Right, so 1, 2, he slipped down, 1, 2, it's falling down, 2, go down there, 2, bump, there we go, we'll hit the ground there. Now, it's important to say, and I should have said this at the beginning, we don't know what kind of ball this is, which means we're already off to a very bad start. The reason is, if this was a basketball, it'll bounce in one way. If it's a golf ball, it'll bounce in another way. So I'm going to be doing what's known as a generic ball bounce, which means it won't really have the properties of anything. It'll just roughly fall the way that you'd expect an ordinary, whatever that means, ball to bounce down some stairs. So it has no real-world physical attributes for us to follow. I've learned by doing a little run-through of this before I did the tutorial that you really have to research what you're going to animate before you try and animate it. Otherwise your approach will be a guessing game, and you'll end up with a result that just isn't quite right, but you don't know why. But the important thing is that we get the workflow practice in there and we start to understand how to approach animation. If this was a real project, I would actually go on YouTube, type in football bouncing downstairs, or I'd go and get a football and bounce it down the stairs and film it so that I can just have a better look and get some real observation in there. So let's keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's taken 10 to hit that step, and I want to see if that looks right or not. I'm going to set my canvas over here to 39. There we go. Just so I can play that one bit back. Now it fell off really quickly. There wasn't really any slow. It's like come to such a slow there at the end, and then it just fell off really quickly. That's obviously not very good. We need to actually slow off the end. I'm going to just delete what I did. Don't be afraid to delete what you've done. Loads of animators treat these keys like they're sacred. They're not. Once you've laid down some keys, have a look. If it doesn't work, delete them and do it again. Animating is reanimating. Right. So let's go down here. 1, 2. And I need to slow in, so I'm going to go down slowly first this time. 1, 2. And slow a bit more. 1, 2. And then a bit more. 2. Let's say that we'll do it like that. Let's see how that looks. It's still too fast. Let's try another one. Tiny bit more, tiny bit more. And then probably get some speed at this point. There. Okay, let's try this one, see how this one looks. I like that more. Let's have a look at the spacing in the graph editor for that move. I'm more interested in how it drops than anything else. So let's just see now. So the first spacing is as big as it is. The second is the exact equal of it. So that's not right because things slow in and slow out. So that's going to be smaller than the second. And then the third increases quite well. And then the fourth increases well as well. The fifth is quite, yep, good. And that was not bad. The last one is shorter than the second last one. And I'd rather that wasn't the case. I'd rather the last one was either the longest or at least equal to the second last one. So let's have a look at that and see how that looks. Yeah, not bad. The translate X is probably still a little bit janky. Let's have a look at translate X. Okay, what's it doing? So it appears to have slowed off the ends, and then it's got some momentum here for some reason. We're going to want to have this X lined up with that corner. So that corner there. So I'm going to make it stick to that corner until about here. And let's just say that it's here where the thrust really kicks in. And we'll have it slow out. So from there to there, slow down. We'll do one more. Come up here, right click, key translate. There's a few ways you can do that. Let's give that a playback and see how that looks. I don't think it looks too bad. Let's bounce it back up and just see how it goes, because we're only looking at half of an animation here. The full animation would be for it to land, bounce, and then keep going. Right, so how many has it taken me to get down, first of all? We won't count these ones because that's not really started falling properly yet. Let's go from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it took 10 to get down, which sounds, you know, reasonable. And we'll bounce back up. Straight up. And then remember, if you look at the curves down here, I'd like this bounce really to bounce back up to about there. So not quite as high as this one, but almost. And I'm going to animate the bounce on the spot and then do the side bit second. So just slow that out, slow out again. So how many has that taken? That's taken 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's take 8. Just let that go a bit higher. There we go. And then we'll drop us out. We'll drop it a bit more now. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't quite see. Move this way so I can see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So again, I'll just make that last one the hardest one. Right, so it was 8 up and 8 down, and we'll probably want to continue at that speed. I'm going to guess that it's going to take another 4 to get down to here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to say to the X now at this point, I want it to be about there. And I'm going to drag that down to there like that. And if we have a look at the X, you can see that that's now saying, okay, well the ball's going to be there. And if we watch it, it'll look really weird. It's going to snap like that. So at this point, we need the X to actually have some kind of splining in between it. From that first bounce there, it now needs to travel all the way to there. I'm going to get rid. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to say to this, bounce in that direction. So I've clicked on that keyframe there, and I'm linearing my way across like that. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, brill. I'm going to try and reduce this slow out a bit and turn it into more of a linear curve, so I'll just try it straight like that and see what that looks like. Okay, I'm going to leave it linear like that. Now you can probably see when you look at this playing back, there's got a bit of a weird stroby thing going on. And the reason for that is because translate Y is still stepped like this. Translate X is splined. And that jittery thing is going to keep happening until I spline everything. So what I can do is take the spline curve and break it down into steps so that it flows properly with the rest of my animation until the end when I spline everything. If I try and do it like this, right clicking on X and hitting select, it will step the rest of the curve, which isn't very helpful because it means that as I go through, it's just going to do a line like that. However, if you go in reverse instead, it'll work. So you can go back to and hit X, and you can see it hasn't affected the rest of the curve. I'm going to use the G key to repeat the translate X over here instead of continuously right clicking and hitting select. So back to G key, back to G key, back to G key, and I'll just do that all the way down. There we go. And I'll just step this last one by coming up here and hitting stepped tangent, and then that last one will become a step. And now when we play it back, it won't strobe. It'll just look a lot more easy to watch. And it brings it back down to being in a planning stage instead of being too far ahead of itself. So let's fill in the translate Y now. So we can see that there's one missing in the middle here. I'm going to right click on here, key selected, and I'm going to highlight this, press W, hold shift and drag it down so that it's roughly in the right place. And let's watch it back and see how it looks. Yeah, not bad. That does the job. Great, we've made it down the first step. 1 down, 4 to go.